government was a barrister, it would lose more cases than Ryanair. Let's talk about, I want to say a few stats to you, ask you a few questions, and then come up with a few solutions. Now let's get down to brass tacks. Why are people worried? Why are people protesting what's going on here in the last week? Because they've been told that there's almost 400 young men from all around the world. They don't know their names, they don't know where they're from, they don't know their criminal record, and they've been landed here on East Wall without any consent from the local people. Let's look at the stats. 40% of people apply for asylum in Ireland. 40% land in Dublin Airport without a passport or without ID. We don't know who they are, where they're from, what they've done before. And you think get them out is right? These people should not be allowed. Nobody should be allowed into our country unless we know who they are, what they're from, and if they want to come here to reside, the same as every normal country in the world outside the EU. The must prove who you are, where you're from, do you have a criminal record. Now I'll tell you, up in Louth, mid-Louth there, not that far from me, a guy moved in there just after Christmas, Slovak Roma called Roman Krok. He was convicted of rape 3 times in the middle of the day in Derby in the UK of a 14-year-old girl.
Yes.
Right. He got jailed for 2.5 years, and as the British were thinking, will we deport this guy, what did he do? He came to Dunleer, where his mother has a free, brand new, 3-bedroom social house. Now, the problem is that the solution to this is that we should know everybody who gets off a plane. It's easy to do, and the solution is immediately is they put the onus on the airlines to know that no one gets off their plane without their face, without their name, and without their passport. Right? Let me ask you a few questions. We want to know everybody who is here. And our first, I'm telling you, we as a people have been taken for a ride by our own government. These politicians are taking us, they are taking our labour, our taxpayers' money, and what do? They give it to their friends in the hotels. 1 in 4 hotel rooms across the country are taken by friends of Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil. 1/4 of hotel rooms in the country. Who would like to go for a holiday for 3 months to Killarney? Hands up! Who would like? The problem is, the government, we are paying, the government are giving the money to their friends. We've got to stop the government using our money to further the nest. They don't do it for compassion or love, no. They do it for profit. Another,
people before profit.
we've been taken for a ride. What is it? 40%. We were told at the start of this conflict with Ukraine, of course, the whole mass immigration movement to Ireland has nothing to do with Russia or Ukraine. Why? The population of Ireland has increased by 1 million in the last 20 years. Right? That's gone up 25% in the last 20 years. But we were told it's going to be men and women. Open your hearts, open your homes. 40% of people claiming to be Ukraine, as Philip Dwyer has pointed out. Many of them are from Kashmir, Pakistan. They look to be from Africa. We know we are being taken for a ride, and we've got to stop it. And look at the rest of those who claim to be refugees. Where are they from? Safe countries like, let me ask you, safe countries like Albania, Georgia, Nigeria, and you know the Dublin Convention, that they're supposed to apply for asylum in the first country in which they land. Let me ask you, and it's a simple question, yes or no. Are there any direct flights from Nigeria to Dublin?
No.
Are there any direct flights from Georgia to Dublin?
No.
Are there any direct flights from Somalia to Dublin? Okay, and we know some of these countries, look at Somalia. Somalia is a lawless, not a very nice country. I'm being diplomatic, that's my skill. Bottom line is that would you, and it's yes or no again, would you, as a responsible parent, put your young daughter in the way of a young male man who just walked into your country, you don't know his name, you don't know where he's from or his criminal record? Yes or no?
Never.
Would you be happy? Yes or no again?
No. The answer's no.
Are you happy that your grandmother would be kicked out on the street by a private nursing home across the country to make room for someone who claims that they are an asylum seeker?
No.
Here's a trick that the mainstream media don't want to talk about, but we all have to think about always. It's not to do with race, it's to do with space, and it's to do with numbers, and it's to do with security, and it's to do with cost. And you, the people who work, people of Ireland, we're the ones who pay the price in our money. And also, why should we allow that there should be more people like Ashley and Murphy who should be raped and murdered in our country? We gotta say, never! Never! I won't say it 3 times and you know why. Second thing, we have to be, the numbers game, as I said, we're all led this merry dance. It's all about asylum seekers and refugees. It is not, right? To the end of August this year, right, over 200,000 PPS numbers were given out in Ireland by the end of August. Do you know how many of those were given to people not who are Irish, who were born in Ireland? What percentage? So 200,000 PPS numbers given out. What percentage were given to people even born in Ireland?
15%.
23%. 23%. So by the end of this year, let's say there'll be well over 200,000 people coming into our country. Let's do the maths. Let's say there's 70,000 from Ukraine, 20,000 from Iran. That's over 110,000. So there will be roughly, I don't know, there's well over 100,000 new people coming into Ireland every year. Now, the population has already increased by 1 million in 20 years. The government, their policy 2040 plan is to actually attract and to bring in and to send out search parties to bring in another million by 2040. Let me ask you a very simple question, and it's yes or no. Do you want Ireland to be a colony?
No.
Are you happy that Ireland is a plantation?
No.
Well, we've got to replace the political class before they replace us.
Here, here.
And if people think that Sinn Féin, remember they used to be called Ourselves Alone. Well, now they have made clear they're not a nationalist or a Republican party, they're a European Unionist party, and their immigration policy is Brits out, everybody else in. And as I said to the Irish Times there yesterday, that Sinn Féin are not the vanguard of the working class, they're the mudguard of the super woke, the big multinational corporations, and we will never be fooled. So, rise up, don't allow these people to colonize our country. We will be no one's colony. No one. So, Irish people, we're good enough. Right, here's another one. Easy, and this is the end. Yes or no question. Are the Irish people good enough to make their own laws?
Yes!
Are Irish people good enough to control our own borders?
Yes!
Are the Irish people good enough to control their own budgets?
Yes!
Well, as said there in the proclamation, we should seek once again Ireland to be a free, sovereign, independent republic. Go to Margaret.
evening all. Firstly, I would like to congratulate the people of East Wall for standing up to fight on this matter. You're an example to everybody in the country. You're doing everybody in this country a great service by showing that you will not be cowed by the racist elites who hate Ireland and the Irish people and who want to destroy Ireland's sovereignty and nationality. This is no longer just a local issue, and to those who say that our party shouldn't be here, I say this has now become a national issue, because the same events that we see playing out in East Wall are being played out in every town and village throughout this country, where highly dubious, unvetted people are being forcibly imported, often into very small, peaceful communities, with no concern whatsoever for the impact that this will have. This is a second, deliberate and carefully planned plantation of this country. The Irish people are not a racist people. I lived in North Dublin for 5 years, and I can say that the people of North Dublin haven't got a racist bone in their bodies. The same can be said for Irish people generally, but when you hear the vicious anti-Irish bigots who run our government and our media accusing ordinary Irish people of racism because they have a genuine concern about the reckless policy of population replacement which is being implemented by the government, and of allowing unvetted people into small communities, then I think it's time we started asking who are the genuine racists here. Those who argue for a sensible and humane immigration policy as we do, or those who hate this country and its people and simply want to undermine our society and our communities. There can no longer be any doubt that it is the intent of the government to substantially replace the Irish population within the next 10 to 15 years. And if this means creating a situation of social chaos and of public disorder, they are quite happy to do so. This can no longer be called a conspiracy theory. The government is on record as saying that it wants to increase our population to 8 million by the year 2040, at a time when Irish birth rates are falling through the floor because ordinary tax-paying working people cannot afford to have children or to buy houses for them. The population increase the government demands, and they give us no good reason for it, can only be achieved by the massive importation of people from abroad. And for the most part, these will be people who come from radically different countries to our own. This is no longer a conspiracy theory, it is a mathematical certainty. The government wants to import a dependent population whose votes it can buy and manipulate. It wants a justification to attack property rights, to attack free speech, to attack the coherence of the Irish nation, and an open door, unvetted importation of people is the way that it will use to achieve those ends. Unless we stand up to government now and say that enough is enough, but then we will no longer have a free and democratic Ireland to defend because our government will have destroyed it. Well, the people of East Wall have come out to give the government their answer. We will not let you destroy our country. In many respects, I think that the present difficulties that we face are only a symptom of what is wrong with our state. For years now, our government has been engaged in lies and deceit and acting directly against the interest of the Irish people. During the COVID era, we saw the state combine with the medical profession and the media to engage in a deliberate policy of misinformation in order to frighten and mislead the public. A large part of the reason for that was to usher in a range of coercive and repressive measures against freedom of movement, freedom of expression, and freedom of bodily autonomy. We now see the same pattern of deceitfulness and lies in the efforts being made by government to cover up the damage caused by the lockdowns, the disregard for proper health care, and yes, even the vaccination programs. Those who 12 months ago were demanding that the unvaccinated be prevented from entering hospitals and be prevented from entering shops so that they could feed themselves are now looking for an amnesty and immunity from prosecution for the damage they have caused. Not a hope in hell for an amnesty for them. We will never forget the damage that they did, because if they do, they'll simply come back and do it again. We now see a massive increase in all-cause mortality being reported throughout Europe. If we do not properly investigate those issues, they will come again under some other pretext, such as global warming or some new health scare, and attack our people again. There can be no doubt that our government and our institutions are engaged in a deliberate policy of tyranny to attack the Irish people. And they have been fairly open about it, about why they want to do it. They want to introduce the Great Reset, where the ordinary people, not the elites mind you, but the ordinary people will own nothing and be happy. The only way they can do this is by dividing the population, by destroying their rights, including property rights and the rights of freedom of speech. The hate speech legislation that is before the Dáil at the moment is only the first of a series of draconian attacks against the rights of the Irish people that this government has planned. Once that legislation is passed, it will be very difficult indeed for the people of East Wall or anywhere else to engage in peaceful protest against the government, because any chant or any slogan will be treated as hate speech and will be attacked by the politically correct courts which have been put in place by the government in order to undermine our democracy and to subvert the Constitution of the Irish Republic. We can't let them do this. The second major plank of undermining people's rights that this government has planned for us is the 39th Amendment to the Constitution, which is proposed for next year and which will effectively put an end to the property rights of Irish people. The wedge that is being used for this is the importation of massive numbers of people who will need to be housed. The government is deliberately setting about the creation of a housing crisis coupled with an immigration crisis, and they then propose to give every person resident in this country, not citizens mind you, but simply residents no matter how they came here, the right to housing. And they state in the proposed amendment that if required it will be necessary to amend existing property rights to vindicate that right. What this means is that nobody will be safe in the security of their own house and of their own land. And if the government is faced with an emergency of housing incoming immigrants, which inevitably they will be, they will simply expropriate private property to meet that need. But it can only happen if we let it. And now is the time for us to say, no, we will not let this happen. The COVID deception, and I think an increasing number of people are beginning to see it as that, was simply a dry run for a system of tyranny to be used against all of us. They wanted to see how much they could get away with. They wanted to see would there be any pushback from the people, from the press, from the churches, from the courts. Well, we now know. If we think that we can rely on the courts or the churches or the so-called free press to defend our liberties and rights, then we're living in cloud cuckoo land. The only way we can protect our liberties by standing up as free people, as you're doing today, and telling the government that enough is enough.
Come on! Come on!
We have had enough of pointless war games and virtue signalling importation of unvetted aliens into our country under the guise of compassion for refugees, while our own people go homeless, destitute and ill-treated. We have had enough of Irish people being treated as second-class citizens within their own homes, while priority is given to people with no connection to this country. We have had enough of fake opposition parties like Sinn Féin, who demand more lockdowns, more immigration and more restrictions on our rights and liberties. We have had enough of engaging in the pretense that you can run a modern industrial economy using only wind and solar power. You cannot. We have had enough facilitating the pipe dream of the deranged Green Party, which ordinary working people will be forced to pay for. We have had enough of our political leaders going over to be patted on their head by Klaus Schwab, Prince Charles and Greta Thunberg and the other neo-Nazis that they look up to. We will have no great reset. We will have nothing to do with that horrible phrase, you will own nothing and you will be happy. We will fight these people if it is the last thing we do. I know that many people have come to the conclusion that politics is finished, and when you look at the mainstream parties of this country, it is easy to reach that conclusion. Their latest ruse is to prohibit the formation of new political parties which do not have an existing TD. In other words, they want to stop the formation of any political dissent. Coupled with the hate speech legislation, it is clear that we are heading into full-on communism. And that is why we have the so-called centrist parties in government. Wait until Sinn Féin get their hands on the levers of power. Wait until they succeed in corrupting our judiciary to the point where they will be beyond rescue. Wait until they corrupt and attack the Garda Síochána to the point where they will only concentrate on the political enemies of Sinn Féin. Then you will know what serious attacks on ordinary working people are really like. Remember, Sinn Féin advocated for harsher and tougher lockdowns, just as now they advocate for greater levels of foreign immigration. There is no party with less right to wave the Irish tricolour than the Sinn Féin party. We in the Irish Freedom Party commit ourselves to the protection and the salvation of the Irish nation. We are a registered political party and we give you a genuine alternative. We will fight for your rights to freedom, to affordable housing, to fair play and to justice. We will not allow our institutions, our courts or our police force to be corrupted. We will not allow this nation to be sold out to foreign interlopers in the European Union or the World Economic Forum. I ask you to consider supporting our party at the next election, and we will have candidates running in this constituency. If we do not stand up now, we will not have an Ireland to protect in 10 years' time. Again, I congratulate the people of East Wall for showing national leadership at a time when it is sorely needed. I call on communities throughout this country to follow your example and to stand up to government and to let them know we will not allow our country to be destroyed. We will protect the Irish nation and the Irish Republic. Thank you very much.
Yes.